Good evening. Do you hear? Yes. Good evening, and thank you for coming on a Sunday evening. And thank you for Internazionale for organizing this, and for the Parco della Musica. It's a totally new experience for me to do things with musical vehicle. Let me start with a point. I never studied journalism. I learned with the job what journalism is and what I should do as a journalist. And I started as a copy editor, very simple job at the bottom of the ladder, checking and rewriting and writing titles for news at the news desk at Haaretz. It was in '89. And already then I got a very good advice by one of my colleagues, an experienced one, a very good advice that accompanies till this very day. And she said, don't write cliches. When you check a piece that somebody else wrote, clean out all the cliches. She meant stylistic cliches. You have very often, you see in, I guess also in Italy, but you see it a lot in Israel in head titles. Let's say a title such as Anger Within the Palestinian Authority. Anger. It doesn't say anything. It's very convenient, but it doesn't say anything. It can fit to any piece of news any time during the last 14 years. Anger in the PA. It doesn't fit to anything specific. Or another form of cliche. Let's say this day of a strike. I invented this cliche. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody fell into it and used this cliche. All traffic stopped in Rome. Which is not true, because there were private cars driving. But you want to convey that there was something dramatic and no public transportation, so journalists might fall into this cliche. Or another cliche which I remember was both in Israel and in the States, when there was disruptions in the supply of electricity in New York. There was a title, Darkness in New York, but the stoppage of electricity occurred during the day, so it could not have been dark during the day. So these are very typical cliches, and there are many others that are connected to idioms, and every language has its idioms that are very easy to be used by saying nothing, don't give any information. Very often these cliches tell about some laziness, either of the writer or of the editor. Laziness to find an original formulation or an original description of what happened. So you say something which is general, which is vague, which can fit to any situation, and that's it. You filled the space and you can go home and rest. So this advice is very useful, and to all of you who are beginners or not beginners, and I always say, don't use cliches as journalists. And don't hide behind those idioms and tokens and formulas. This is true about stylistic cliches. But there is much greater a danger to a journalist and to journalist work, and these are the mental cliches, not only the stylistic, but the mental are much more dangerous. The patterns, the formulas that are being used that direct a journalist in what he or she look for or write about, or the way they describe it. The mental cliches are a real mine in our job. This writing in formulas, or according to what or according to what other media say or think about or talk about, shows a lot of that you give up your own independent thinking, that you give up on examining the subject beyond what is accustomed to speak about the subject. You refer to the self-evident and do not look inside. I'll be more specific, I'll give you an example. During this week that I spent in Rome, I was interviewed by several Italian journalists. And all of them were very interested in the Annapolis meeting that took place at the beginning of the week. George Bush, representatives of Arab states, Palestinian Authority, and Israel. And of course, I was all the time asked, it is a proof for the resumption of the peace process, and questions like that. I felt tired. I felt tired by these questions because, especially in one program that will be broadcast on the 1st of January here in Rome, in Italy. It's more than a month's time distance, and I was asked questions about Annapolis as if it were the 20th conference of the Communist Party in '56. And very specific questions about the delegations, about the decisions, And on these very days, there were some other pieces of information available to everybody who is so interested in the subject, other pieces of information published in Israel. I'll give you. One of them is that the Israeli Ministry of Justice is looking for ways to legitimize the unauthorized outposts that maybe some of you know that since 2005 all Israeli settlements are illegal. All Israeli colonies in the occupied territories are illegal. But they are authorized by the authorities. Very often they were authorized after the fact of being established. But in the last 7 or 8 years, with the encouragement of Ariel Sharon, when he was in the opposition and not a prime minister, Israeli colonists established many unauthorized outposts near their colonies, near their settlements, but quite far away and very often on Palestinian private land. A report by an expert in the Ministry of Justice specified the history of those outposts. It was in 2005, and the woman called Natalia Sasson, and it was meant to be the beginning of a process of dismantling those outposts. Now it's the end of 2007. Maybe one was dismantled, and all the rest, about 70 or 80, are kicking and alive and even growing. So now we are told that the Israeli Ministry of Justice, with a new minister, is looking for ways to legitimize those very outposts. This is one piece of news. Another piece of news is that construction in the authorized settlements still goes on. Another piece of information, very important, is that Israeli High Court allows the government to cut the supply of fuel to the Gaza Strip. It postponed in 2 weeks the decision about the cut